My name is Rosanna Moore, and I was on season 8 of Alone on the History Channel. Alone is a survival show on the History Channel. 10 participants are chosen out of a pool of about 20,000 applicants. You're then taken to an area and dropped off. For us, it was British Columbia, and you're completely away from each other. You have no camera crew. You are filming yourself, trying to survive in the wilderness. The challenge is to be the last man standing. Every season there's a little bit of a different twist. Last year was like a 100-day challenge. This year the element was danger, so we had a lot of grizzly bear activity around us. British Columbia is a really beautiful area. It's like Pennsylvania, just on a grand scale. The mountains are bigger, and Pennsylvania is a very beautiful place, and British Columbia is just intensified. It's basically the same wilderness, the same woods, the same water, just bigger. Being from Pennsylvania prepared me in different ways than I had expected them to have prepared me. I think growing up here, I became familiar with wildlife and being aware of the wildlife that's around me. So that was very helpful when I got there. But it was very different, way more so than what I had expected. Here you can look anywhere and find an earthworm. There I couldn't find an earthworm anywhere, which was so strange to me. But I think that when I travel in other places around the world, I don't think of looking for an earthworm because I'm not going to use it. But there was just a funny thing, like everything here is a little bit different than Pennsylvania. I grew up in a little town called Asaph, Pennsylvania. Asaph is just a few minutes outside of Wellsboro. It's really in the heart of the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. Survival skills is a little bit different for me. I'm not a survival expert. I practice survival skills and bushcraft skills just out of an interest of my own and figuring stuff out when I'm out in the woods and in different environments and stuff whenever I just need it and have to make it work. I think growing up here in the mountains, and all of this stuff just being important to me because it helped me cope with the situations that I was in, and it was my safe place in my home. As I grew up, I just valued it more and more, and I knew that if there aren't people like me that are passionate about it, it goes away. As I got older, and this all became so much more important, it helped me to learn a lot of lessons from it. So growing up here helps me thrive elsewhere because I learned things the hard way here in the mountains. I own and operate a sporting goods store in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, Morse Sports Center, and in that shop I teach conservation. So it's a little bit more of a training center than it is a retail shop, so I do a lot of youth activities there. When the show contacted me, I think I was at a really good place in my life. The store had reopened, and I kind of wanted to shift gears and not be so much retail and be more training center, but things were very, very slow because of COVID, so I couldn't train a lot. I have a larger goal prior to the show, which is the North American Super Slam, and I want to accomplish all 29 large North American animals with a bow. Only one woman has ever done that, and the purpose behind choosing a North American Super Slam is to teach conservation from a cultural aspect. In doing that, I'm in a lot of different environments and I'm always being tested in a different situation. But oftentimes there is somebody nearby or somebody that can help me or advise me. So I wanted to put myself out there in a situation where nobody is going to tell me how to do it and really test myself at the ultimate level. I'm pretty stubborn, and sometimes afterwards I kick myself for that. The rations, I think that most people advise me to take rations, but I wanted to know if I could do it from just the most basic level, and I just got that in my head and I just wasn't gonna forgo for any reason. So I was adamant that I was not taking rations. This season was a little bit different than most seasons because of COVID. We had to have a quarantine period. So we were there over a month before we were even dropped. So when we first got there, we go into quarantine. We do quite a few COVID tests, and then we leave quarantine, we go to orientation. Orientation is where we can interact with each other a little bit more. We did a bear safety training, and we do a lot of camera training. The trainings are really just basic operation of the camera and just reiterating that we need footage all the time to make sure that we're filming from different angles and teaching us those different angles and how to coordinate the cameras to match up, so because they have a lot of footage that they have to try to put together. I have not seen anything of myself until it hits television. We have no idea what footage, and when you're out there, you film a lot of really cool things. So there are a lot of things that I'm hoping that you guys get to see, but it's really up to them. So I have no idea, and I have forgotten a lot of the stuff that I went through until I see it on television. So our actions there were not really dictated so much by our choices, but more so by the element of danger, I think. There were things that came into play in this season that maybe weren't so severe in previous seasons. So our actions were really dictated by the wildlife, I'll say. The number one thing that people think about the show is that you have people there with you, and there is nobody there with you. And you can't even make them come there when you need them or you want somebody there. Like, it's not going to happen until they can eventually get to you. So like when that realization sets in that nobody's even coming, like, you know, like nobody's just going to swing by for a visit. It's not going to happen. I think that's a hard second. That's a hard realization, but that's the thing that people think, that you're not alone, but you are in fact alone. I had done a lot of exploring of mindset training. I have a friend who works locally doing a lot of law enforcement training, and we had discussed mindset training. So I did a lot of reading about mindset training and really practicing mindset training. I knew that mentally, I've come to terms with almost everything that's come into my life that maybe would creep into my thoughts out there. So I focused a lot on healing and making sure I was okay before I even went out there. I think that there are those moments that you feel defeated, and you know, when you want to start a fire because you need water and you need food and you can't get your fire started, and then you maybe burn through the little bit of dry material that you have, and now you have to walk all the way back to your shelter to get more, or you've used it all. And now you have to find a different way. There are those moments that you just feel defeated, but you have to pick yourself up and do it anyways. You have to survive anyways. I think for some people it might be a little bit more difficult because they know that there's that out. You have that tap out button. So I think that that also plays into the mental side of things. Like, are you mentally strong enough when you feel so defeated to not hit that button? I mean, there's a lot more that I want to tell you, but you have to see the rest of the story. Being on the show has been very interesting, being home. Growing up by myself, really, I didn't have a lot of support. I was bounced around a little bit when I was growing up. So I kind of became self-sufficient and took care of everything myself, and didn't have a lot of, you know, good job or congratulations. And this support that I'm receiving from my community is absolutely amazing. It's overwhelming, and it's such a foreign thing to have so much support. I had a plan, and we are not far enough into the season for me to tell you the rest of that answer, but I'll tell you that I build fire pits and I build fireplaces, and I experiment with chimneys and having a lantel inside so that the smoke rolls and doesn't come back in, and I know this stuff. And so I felt confident when I got out there that I would be just fine, and you will get to see the rest of the story. This isn't the first time that I've been alone. I travel all over and spend a lot of time in the woods alone. So for me, I appreciate how humbling it is. I tell people all the time that I'm very, very grateful for the experience, and they just think it's so crazy that I would starve and be scared and be alone and be grateful for that experience. But it makes me a better person. It makes me a better human being.
Do you have any regrets about being on the show?
No, absolutely not. I would go do it again in a second. My name is Rosanna Moore, and I am from North Central Pennsylvania.
At UPMC, we're pioneering new ways to treat cancer, and we're working to prevent it. We're advancing new technology to look more closely at disease and helping you breathe easier. We performed the world's first heart-liver transplant, And we're experts at keeping your heart beating strong. We're a global team of more than 90,000, advancing care everywhere and delivering it closer to you. UPMC, life-changing medicine.